They're going to raise hundreds of billions from these ETFs from us. What are they then going to do with that money? Well, it's distributed between the member states to spend themselves, right, in green projects. So you're going to take in all of this tax money, you're going to give it to the member states, it's going to disappear into bureaucracy, into consultants, into admin, and then a tiny little bit's going to trickle down, and like somebody at the council's going to put a couple of trees in the park and a bench and be like, oh, this is the European Green Energy Sustainability Investment Fund has provided this park bench and these fucking trees. A bit more car talk today, but it's not really focusing on any like specific cars or anything. We're still working our way on the G-Wagon. We've got the engine and everything back in it, and the gearbox transfer case. I'm going to go and get some bolts for the drive. I've lost the drive shaft bolts. It's like, where have they gone? So they are disturbingly expensive for 8mm bolts. So I have to go and get some new bolts for that today so I can get the drive shaft all hooked up. I never mentioned it in the last video, the last update on this, but the body, I went to see the mechanic about the body, and the body is still not even started. It's supposed to be ready in September. We're in like the 20-something of September today, and it's still not even started. So this car's not going to be ready next year either. It's just taking up space in the workshop. We're going to talk today a little bit about ETS2. Probably never heard of it. Some people will have heard of it, probably nobody's heard of it. You might know what ETS is. It's emissions trading scheme, and it's that's where heavy industry buys carbon credits from the European Union for every gram of or ton of CO2 that they emit. They have to buy a credit, and then once they've used up all of their credits, they have to buy credits in advance, and then once they've used all their credits, they then have to buy more credits at auction. So in 2027, ETS2 comes into play. How does ETS2 affect us as motorists and consumers? ETS2 focuses more on transport and housing. So it's a double whammy. It's going to hit you in your car and it's going to hit you in your home, right? I am Scottish and I live in Spain, so that you might wonder, why is this Scottish guy talking about Europe? But I have the double unluck of living in a country that's been run into the ground and being from a country that's been run into the ground from Europe. It's like, why did I decide to make this video? Because I've known about these ETFs for a while, and it's just been something that's been on my mind. Like, I'd make a video about this because it's bloody complicated. Intentionally so complicated, do you know what I mean? Like, if you go in and read the European, the papers on it, and it's all just like it's all consultants speak, right? If you've worked in an industry with lots of consultants speak, you can see it and understand it a bit, but it's intentionally vague and intentionally fucking complicated, I always think. So what's ETS2? ETS2 is where they're going to expand the European emissions trading scheme to cover transport and households. What does that mean by transport and households? It means that retailers of fuels essentially will now be added to it. Before, retailers of fuels didn't have to buy carbon credits. Like producers of fuels, like oil companies, a very heavy industry, they had to buy carbon credits, but now it's expanded to retailers. So think like your fuel companies and your electricity supplier. So your fuel company is now, for every ton of CO2, like, don't shoot me if the weights and dimensions of all of this is out, right? And the facts are not pure perfect. This is like a general overview. I'm not a European climate scientist, right, or consultant. But the retail companies, your fuel companies, your energy providers are going to have to buy at auction every year carbon credits, right? So every ton of CO2 produced by a product that they sell, so petrol, they sell X amount of litres of petrol, and that X amount of litres produces X amount of tonnes of CO2. You buy your credits in advance, and then you have a limit. And once you have expended your limit, you then have to go to the auction and buy more carbon credits. The price of carbon credits is supposed to be fixed, I think, at something like 45 euros a tonne for CO2, right? There's too many figures in this. I'm going to try and not do the figures because I'm just going to don't want to be looking at that bit of paper all the time. But so they have to then buy carbon. They have to buy credits to offset the emissions that their products have sold. So the more products they sell, the more credits they're then going to have to go and buy. So the more successful of a company you are, the more credits you're going to have to buy. And obviously these retailers are not going to eat the cost of these credits. These credits are going to have to be then passed on to consumers in the European own paperwork, right, in their own reports. Have fun reading all those reports, right? It's going to be like 11 cents for petrol and 14 cents for diesel per litre. The price is going to increase, right? This is starting in 2027. So in 2027, you can expect fuel prices to jump 11 cents and 14 cents a litre. Be ready for that. And this is all in a drive to help funding the green transition. So all of the money the European Union makes these carbon credits, and then they sell the carbon credits to the retailers. The retailers then sell their fuel and buy more carbon credits. But obviously, if there's only a finite number of carbon credits, so obviously if everybody is polluting a lot, the price of the credits is going to go up. People speculating that if this goes badly and the fuel price was suddenly to jump very high oil price, because right now we have a really low oil price. I think for 2026 they're predicting that the oil price might be like $50 a barrel, which in reality is really cheap. I think about 2008 we were up in $150 a barrel, always around $100 a barrel. And to be down at 50, that says that we have a glut of oil and gas. We are swimming in oil and gas, but we'll get back to that. So the EU then sells these carbon credits, company buys the carbon credits, they put this cost onto us the consumers. As we're driving, we're going to be paying an extra 10, 11, 15, 40, 15 cents a litre minimum for our fuel, right? And this is supposed to drive us into buying new cars, new electric cars. And again, this doesn't only cover automotive, this covers households also. So if you have a gas boiler in your house, if you have an oil-fired central heating system, this is going to affect you there also. Your home electricity bills are going to go up. And again, this is in a way to force you to go to a heat pump or to put solar panels on your house. So it's really a double whammy for consumers, these extra energy costs, these extra electricity and energy costs on both sides, which is like, wow, just what everybody needs. You either love Trump or you hate him, but if you watched him at the UN yesterday, he absolutely smoked everybody and their agendas. Do you know what I mean? We have a glut of oil and gas, we have a glut of energy. There are so much proven reserves of oil and gas right now, and new fields coming online all the time, like Guyana's ramping up, Mauritania for gas. We have West Mediterranean, which is bumping up. Venezuela, if it ever comes back online, if they can get off of the sanctions. Russia, if they become unsanctioned, if the war ends. Do you know what I mean? We have historically low oil and gas, not historically low, but we have very low oil and gas prices and a low predicted oil and gas price for all of next year. So that is without, bringing Iran in from the cold, bringing Russia back in and adding all of these supplies. So we have this massive abundance of cheap energy, and Europe is just trying to funnel us into all of these ways to get away from this cheap energy and transition away when we're not really ready for it. You know, a lot of people are working towards new types of nuclear energy, fusion energy, new types of like focused solar, tidal energy, wind energy, all these great projects that people are working on, but it's really not ready, right? And people know that because your electricity bills everywhere in Europe and Britain are higher than they've fucking ever been. America's electricity price is like a third of ours. America's pumping 10 million barrels of oil right now, and they were doing like 3 million barrels a couple of years ago. Now they're doing 10 million. And electricity demand is just is about to exponentially grow. We're at a cusp of this AI revolution, and even if we are to everybody to start driving electric cars, we're going to need a massive amounts more electricity, right? In that build out of all of this new electricity we're going to need, there's going to be like a global demand for copper cables, transformers, control system circuits. Everything that's involved in the building out of this grid is going to be in demand everywhere, and that's going to put the prices of all of this infrastructure up. So what we really need is productive, low energy cost environment to fund all of these sort of future endeavours to bring us to net zero or to lower carbon and lower emissions, which is just like forcing us into it and just adding putting another 10 pence a litre onto people's cars. Is that really going to help? And more onto the cost of their household electricity and heating, is that going to help people in the short term become more productive and more efficient, and the countries to become more productive and make more money? I don't think so. It's just going to take more and more money out of people's pockets to actually spend on things that add to the economy. People, if you're just spending all of your wages on rent and energy and like loan repayments, that doesn't stimulate the economy. If people have more money in their pocket, they're buying more things, they're renovating their homes, they're investing money, that stimulates the economy. But just having enough money to survive and to pay down your debts, is to pay your mortgage and to pay your car finance, that is just like dead money that's just going back into the banking system. That's not money going out into like the wider economy really and stimulating the economy. So that seems like so counterintuitive, to be in a glut of energy and to have resources everywhere that we can use cheaply, and to be forcing people over to taxing their electricity more and more so that they cannot then spend money or have more money in their pocket. Like, why are you making people have got to suffer for this transition? Do we really have to suffer for this transition? How about we just use what we have available to us right now to its maximum, and then reap the benefits of that growth to incentivize green energies and green technologies. Like in our last video, we talked about like this European car industry just building cars that people don't want. And the European car industry for the last 30 years has been spectacular at building lower and lower emission cars, and more and more economic cars that can go 100 kilometers on 1 litre. That's like over a decade ago. We had the XL1, and companies were striving to make better, cheaper, more durable, more cost-effective, more environmentally friendly cars. That's what Europe really specialises at, and they're being forced into the corner of where they're just building high-margin luxury electric cars that nobody wants. They depreciate like a stone. There's no secondary market for them, and these are the repercussions of this crazy energy policy of not using the resources that we have and trying to force everybody in quick time to change over to these new technologies. You know, a big part of this might just be because Europe doesn't have a lot of fossil fuels. Do you know what I mean? They're just like, well, we don't have any fossil fuels. We should just try and innovate our way out of it. But in innovating your way out of not having any fossil fuels, you are actually killing some of your biggest industries, forcing everybody into like buying things they don't need, heat pumps and house renovations and insulating your houses and all of these costs. Do you know what I mean? I grew up in Scotland in a house that had basic heating. We had a log fire, and if you were cold, you just put a jumper on. Do you know what I mean? Like, everybody's got to, maybe don't turn up your electric heating, your gas heating to triple your electricity bill because you're cold. Just put a fucking jumper on. Do you know what I mean? You think everybody's like has to live at like a perfectly temperature controlled 22 degrees or something inside their house? That's not really how people live. Like, people are cold in their houses, or people are warm in their houses. Like, I live in Spain, it's hot in the house. We don't have air conditioning, never turn the air conditioning on. You know, I think if you've just sat all your life in like a Brussels office that's climate controlled, and then you get in your chauffeur driven Mercedes to go back to your climate controlled house, and then to go back to your new home that you live in as a politician, it's all subsidied up to the max with heat pumps and insulation and everything. You're like, this is how everybody should live. But it's like, your life is completely subsidized by the EU, and it's like, that's not how everybody else lives. People aren't like flush with spare cash to like, let's put a new roof in our house, let's insulate our house, let's put new windows in our house. And it's like, well, we are going, there's so many things in this like ETS stuff, and it's like, what will we use the money on? We will use the money on into interest-free loans so people can insulate their house and people can buy electric cars. And so it's like, okay, so you're going to give interest-free loans and incentivize people to just take on more debt. Wow, great, thanks a lot. More dead money, just paying back stuff that we don't really need. Like, nobody needs like triple insulation in your house. Put a jumper on. You know what I mean? It's like, and the thought, you know, that seems crazy. It's like, you look at the solutions and what it have, and everything is like standards, regulations, or financing and tax incentives. There's no like innovation. There's no like, oh, we have this new great technology. It's just like, how can we make this work? But we'll take the money that we raise from the ETFs. They're going to raise hundreds of billions from these ETFs from us. What are they then going to do with that money? Well, it's distributed between the member states to spend themselves, right, in green projects. So you're going to take in all of this tax money, you're going to give it to the member states, it's going to disappear into bureaucracy, into consultants, into admin, and then a tiny little bit's going to trickle down, and like somebody at the council's going to put a couple of trees in the park and a bench and be like, oh, this is the European Green Energy Sustainability Investment Fund has provided this park bench and these fucking trees. So I mean, like, that's what happens. It's just gets grafted away into consultants and fucking admin and running the European bureaucracy. That's like 300 billion, they're just going to poof it away on fucking garbage. Whereas that money would be better spent in people's pockets. If people have that money and they are spending it, then that's better for everybody than just like, let's give another 300 billion to the European Union that then they can distribute between the member states to spend on fucking fantasy projects. Again, more of your money just, yeah. While all along at the same time, you're just regulating on your current industries out of existence. You're just regulating your car companies, you're regulating your energy companies, you're banning like investments in fossil fuels. You're not spending money on like infrastructure or anything. You're just like looking for prestige projects that you can fucking tout out and say, oh, look what we did here. We made this bit of the city pedestrian friendly and bicycle friendly, and it's like you're just fluttering money away, putting like new pavements and more road furniture and more signs and traffic calming and low emission zones, and just all pure garbage that's money spent, that's our money that would be better in our pockets than us spending on it whatever we like. You're better off spending that money in the bar, you're better off spending that money like in a restaurant, in a shop, in the hardware store, driving your car more, buying like tires, buying another car, renovating your house, going on holiday. That money then flows out into the ecosystem of people and the world and keeps the world moving. But you're just taking another minimum 11 cents, 12 cents, 15 cents off every litre of fuel people have, and fuck knows how much they're going to put onto your electricity bills. And then just taking that money and putting it into the bureaucracy machine that is the European Union for them to fucking come up with a better plan for it than us. The better plan for it is leave it in our pockets and let us spend it. You already have VAT and taxes and everything up the wazoo on petrol and fuel. And how about no more, no more costs on fuel until there is a real solution. Once there is inductive electric charging everywhere, and once we have a absolute glut of so much renewable energy, we don't know what to do with it, that we can have all of these data centers and all of this new future of technology, when we have, you know, high electricity demand factories making things, right? And everybody's house is at 22 degrees, and everybody that's hot has the air conditioning blasting full blast, and everybody that's cold has the heating blasting full blast. Until that is like cheap and cost effective, let's not continue to keep adding more and more fees, surcharges on top of people's lives. No? There's so much stuff in this, I can't even read it all, but it's just like, I recommend you to go and research and look into what is ETS2, the European Emissions Trading Scheme 2, and look specifically into how it's going to affect normal people, how it's going to affect cars, how it's going to affect your house, right? And just be like, who voted for this? Again, it's just like another thing that like nobody voted for. It's just another thing where like Brussels are coming up with like fantastic ideas for the benefits of everybody, but for pain in everybody in the short term. Are we constantly like voting in our representatives to put short-term pain on us for a long-term future? I don't think so, right? Because we're the taxpayers in the now, we're the people living in the now, and it's like, you're going to have to suffer for the people of the future. Do we really have to though? Like, surely if we just do the most amount possible to make everything as efficient, the technologies that we have maximum efficiently, and use the resources we have to the maximum of their potential, whilst becoming more efficient with like our internal combustion engines and our hybrids and the technologies that we have that already work, surely that's a better way forward than just throwing money away into inefficient technologies that haven't been mastered yet. You know what I mean? Let's become the master of what we're good at and then focus on what we can be. Seems just crazy. Look into ETS2 and have a read about it and be ready, because this is 2025, September now, it's coming in 2027, and you're going to be like, why the hell did my petrol just get 10 cents, 11 cents more expensive? Like that. And you'd be like, oh, well, what you could do about it is the European Climate Fund is going to subsidise you buying a brand new car. And it's like, oh, okay, so I need to find 300, 400, 500 euros a month to finance a car that is maybe lesser than the car you already have. The car that could last you another 10 years, 12 years. You know, buy an electric car that's, nobody's saying that these electric cars aren't going to last 10 years. There's no reason why electric cars aren't going to last hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles, right? But people like new cars, people like buying new things. People want like, oh, fancy a new car this year. And it's like, oh no, I can't, because I'm totally upside down in the finance on this electric car. Like, I'll get, 20% of what I paid for it back. It's impossible to sell and it's impossible to get out of. So you're then just stuck in this car forever. And it might not even be any good. You might have bought it, you might realize, oh, this car's shite. But it's impossible for you to trade it in and buy a new car, because you're just stuck in this massively depreciated value of it. Anyway, I keep going off on tangents while I'm trying to wrap this up. It's sad. It's sad when you're just watching America disappear from like Europe right now. Europe and Britain, America's just like, see you later. We are out of here with our technology companies. Whereas here in Europe, we're just like, the people are going to have to suffer in the short term. And it's like, it's depressing, isn't it?